Welcome back to UPress Play, a sports show produced by FAU Student Media. We are live streaming on OwlTV's YouTube. I'm Megan. Joined alongside me is Maddox and Cameron, and there is a new face with us today, Morgan. Do you want to kind of introduce yourself to the viewers today?
Yeah, I'm Morgan Larkins. I love sports. I'm very excited to be on the show.
How long have you been writing for the UP?
Yeah, I've been a staff writer since freshman year, but I've been really actually writing articles full time, I'd say, since this year, beginning of sophomore year. Yeah,
well, it's exciting to have you with us today. Unfortunately, JD's having car troubles and he is graduating soon, and so is Cameron. Are you excited for that?
Finally, bro. I cannot come anytime soon. I think it's like 30-something days now.
I think it's less than that.
Maybe a little bit less. I want to say it's December 13th at 1 p.m. Unless I'm mistaken.
Oh, so that's less than 30 days, yeah.
Yeah, less than 30 days. And just got a little bit left to wrap up with school. And then I'm out of here. I'm gone. So I'm doing well. How are you guys doing over there?
Yeah. How are you? I feel like we haven't seen each other. We haven't done this in
It's been a while.
It's been 2 weeks.
It was after the hurricane, it was during a Halloween episode, Cameron, JD, and Megan were doing something.
You haven't been on it in 3 weeks.
I was covering... What sport was I covering? I was covering something for Owl Radio. I think it was a women's basketball exhibition game. I was covering that game during the Halloween game, or around Halloween. So I wasn't here for that show. So I'm also been a while since I've been back. Feeling good. Just right now, kind of a little bit mentally drained from all the classes and homework and covering sports this entire semester. So I'm just looking for recharge, enjoying time with my family back in Tarpon, enjoying football, Thanksgiving games. And just having a home-cooked meal for the first time in a couple of months.
Yeah. I know I'm graduating in the spring, and I'm already starting to think of that graduation date, so I'm definitely ready for this semester to wrap up, and then we have our slight winter break, and then full go starts again. But
I gotta say, I kind of envy you guys, because for you guys, you're going to be graduating within a year or whatnot, basically. Because you're going to be gone, you and JD are going to be gone next year, Megan, and you're going to be gone after spring. I got a full year left, basically. So I want to start graduating soon, but I'm got taking credits now.
I'm not even thinking about graduating. Jesus.
What semester are you in right now?
I'm just a sophomore in my
sophomore.
Yeah, fall semester.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
it's not the same as you?
I'm a junior, so I just started about to finish my first semester as a junior.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, so since it's been such a long time since we've been here, there is a lot of updates, specifically with FAU football. The last, I feel week with all of the football news has been absolutely insane. Just to kind of recap what's been going on with their games. So they lost their homecoming game to USF 44-21. I know all of us are really talking about how that was kind of a must-win game for them because it was the end of homecoming week and then the newer conference rivals, but unfortunately it was another blowout. And then the next week after that, they lost to ECU 49-14. I remember I was watching that game and it was, I believe in the first quarter, FAU was already down by 21, and they battled injuries. Cam Fancher got injured that game. They had to go to their backup quarterback, Casey Wiseman, and then he also got injured, so they had to bring in their third-string quarterback. And then they also lost to Temple on Saturday in overtime, 18-15. But prior to the loss to Temple, they fired their defensive coordinator, Bellantoni?
Yeah.
Okay. They fired him on last Sunday, so it was November 10th was when they fired him and the offensive lineman coach, Ed Warner. And yesterday, they officially announced that Tom Herman is fired. Are you guys, I know that earlier we kind of debated that, I think after like 6 games or so. So was this like a shocking decision to come through?
I'll take it first. No, maybe that they decided the timing of it because, like you mentioned, they let go of 2 well-liked coaches the week before, and I took that for one as, so we're probably going to have another year of Herman, because that's kind of like a move like, I have to do something when you fall to 2-7 at that point. That felt like a move like, I have to do something. Let's do that. So for them to go ahead and fire Herman a week later, the timing of that is odd. I don't think it's an odd decision, though. I mean, you were brought here to and I don't want to say like your only goal is getting to a bowl game, but when you're FAU, that's a tangible goal at the end of every season. And when you've missed 2 of them before Herman gets there, I think you kind of expect to at least like be back there or like competitive for a chance at that.
Especially with especially with his record with bowl games, because it seems he head coach prior to FAU and prior to that little like hiatus, working with the Chicago Bears for a little bit, and then CBS Sports as a broadcaster. He was like 5-0 record in bowl games. So everyone's like, you go to a bowl game, you're gonna get on that win with him.
And I think worse than that, FAU looks worse. I don't know how familiar you guys were with like FAU whenever Willie Taggart was around. There were some bad teams, and unfortunately, they've regressed since then. Which, if you ask fans back then, they probably wouldn't think that's possible. He was brought here to win. He hasn't done it. So that's what happens.
Yeah, it's part of business. I'm glad that you pointed out. I was shocked because I felt like you said, when they let go of the 2 assistant coaches, it's like, okay, this is the decision. They're going to stick with Herman going forward. And then Herman gets let go yesterday. And yesterday they also bring Brock back.
Playing many men.
Yeah.
Hilarious Twitter post. Awesome Twitter post.
I'm back.
Which I don't think it should go unmentioned. This I guess would be his 3rd time technically being defensive coordinator, because he was also defensive coordinator from 2014 to 16 or 16 to 18.
I thought it was like 2019.
Someone would have to fact check me, but this technically would be his 3rd stint as FAU defensive coordinator, which has to be like a record in like holding the same college football job 3 times.
It's probably some record, but I know you 2 both went to the press conference today.
Yeah.
Yes.
What did you kind of learn about? I know the players kind of spoke a little bit on their thoughts on Rock coming back to the team. And what did you hear from them?
Yeah, I was. Everybody. Speaking about Bellantoni a little bit more, everybody loved Bellantoni. Like Jackson Ambush specifically was like, that he's the best coach in my opinion. Like that's what he said. So I'm guessing all the players were kind of maybe a little bit mad or divisive about that move that was made, and they're really happy that he's back. And Lunsford, the interim head coach, said that it was kind of a no-brainer to him to bring him back.
Yeah, no, and I think I'm glad you brought that up, Megan, because one thing me and him talked about at the end was I at least personally expected it to be like a little bit more somber, at least from the players' perspective. But I really don't think that's not what I kind of like took away from that. I think bringing back Bellantoni like kind of softened the blow of like losing your head coach. So, and I like he said, I really liked kind of what Lunsford was talking about, things like continuing recruiting, like as much as he can, talking about what there is to salvage in 2 games left, because all that's to say, I guess you could say the season's over because you only have 2 more games left. There's no sort of postseason left, but there's things to salvage. 4-8 looks a lot better than 2-10 when you're trying to sell yourself to recruits. And he talked about that. Maybe not saying that specifically, but that's what I took away. That if there is anything to salvage left from 2 games, they seem to be like in the right mindset to do that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that, so for those of you that don't know, I don't believe I said this, but Chad Lunsford was named as the interim head coach, and interestingly enough, he had this happen at Georgia Southern University when their head coach was fired, and then he became the interim head coach. and then he served as the head coach at Georgia Southern for, I believe it was 2 years.
But it was 3 seasons.
It was 3 seasons?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, for 3 seasons, and he had a successful run there, right?
Yeah, he went to 3 bowl games and he won 2 of them. So very successful, and he actually won 10 wins in his first season as the full-time head coach.
It seems good that he has that experience stepping into this position now, because he kind of knows what kind of role that he has to have. And, you know, for the seniors, it's just hopefully they can kind of come together these last 2 games, because I know that Ambush was saying today that as seniors, this is their last time possibly playing. You know, they don't know going forward if they'll make it to the NFL or anything like that. And I mean, personally, I predicted 4-8 for the season prediction. So if they could come with the last 2 wins, that would actually be really cool.
I mean, even with like the circumstances, these are still 2 winnable games, because Charlotte this week
without their head coach.
just let go their head coach, and interestingly, their head coach after getting fired showed up to practice later. Interesting. And then Tulsa's not world beaters either. So like, again, there is positive to be found in like the last 2 games, even though it's been a wild past week.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna say on Twitter, I remember the voice for the Owls football team, Ken Levicka. He was saying how there are a couple of coaches for the football program who were interim head coaches, and they were 5-0 combined, undefeated. So we got like Brian Wright was 4-0, and most recently Glenn Spencer was 1-0. So I mean, there's some upside with Lunsford, at least like historically leading for this team against Charlotte in the senior day, which is this Saturday, I think at 3 p.m. And then finally on the road against Tulsa, who are also on the bottom of their division. But also, I think just from going on to my opinion about my thoughts when hearing that Coach Herman was fired, I mentioned on my Twitter account how I felt like they kind of scapegoated with Bellantoni getting fired a little bit. I know it might seem like a harsh word with scapegoat, but sure, over the years, throughout the season, seeing how the defense has played, statistically they've not gotten that great nationally compared to the offense. But I was telling this to Morgan when we were leaving our class together on our way to the Union, and I did this for an op-ed for my one of my classes, talking about the program and my thoughts on Coach Bellantoni getting fired. And of course, saying I felt like it was scapegoated. But looking at how the offense is, I mean, all their 7 losses, now 8, but for their 7 losses that I looked at, only 2 of them they won time of possession. In the past couple of games against Eastern Carolina and against USF, the game that I broadcasted for radio, it was 4th down, it was turnover on downs, punt, interception, fumble. So the offense barely stays on the field. Defense over time stay on the field longer, getting more and more drained. And so, as a fan, you're seeing how well the defense has played a little bit throughout the season. Earlier in the year, first play against Michigan State, interception. Against Army, who Army averages about, I think, 36, close to 40 points, and you're having only put up 24 in their second game of the season. That's pretty impressive. But looking at the offense, barely put up 20 points per game. And so I felt like the obvious choice was to get rid of Coach Friedman. Coach Herman was like, okay, we're going to get rid of Bellantoni. I was like, okay, I thought you were trying to just point a finger like, here's the problem. Let me just get this out of the way. Because everyone was kept asking, who are we going to get rid of? Who's at fault for this? Who's at fault for this? We were mentioning on the show, is it the quarterback's problem? Is it Coach Herman? Is it Coach Fry? Who's the play caller? Whose fault is it for problems with the team? And Herman went on one side going, it's going to be Bellantoni. He's fired. And then as soon as Herman's fired, a couple of hours later, interim coach Lunsford brings back in Bellantoni, and players were praising, which I was also kind of surprised to see, how players almost unanimously were like, yeah, this is the guy we would like, because we like Coach Bellantoni. So I was kind of very surprised by that more than the firing.
Yeah, I mean, with a football team, it's a machine, it has all these parts that are working together, and clearly there was just some disconnect between, who knows? Honestly,
that's
this
what
whole
I mean,
that's what
Maddox kind of, expanded on it a little bit. It's a disconnected team from top to bottom, because I can't think of one game, maybe North Texas, where they were playing, complementary team football, where the offense, defense, special teams were playing well. That's the only game I really can think of, and then that led to a collapse in the 2 minutes. You give up 10 unanswered points in however short it was.
Within I think 2 or 3 minutes, but also
whatever it may be, it's just never once. And when that's your main problem, you can't just point to it was the offense, it was the defense. It's a team problem. So that leads you to a decision they made.
Yeah.
So if that's my piece on if one thing went wrong, just how disconnected as a team they were.
Yeah,
and that leads to coach, and that falls on coaching.
Yeah,
So do you feel like there was a lack of connection that kind of Herman
For
brought
sure.
between the offense
And I think
defense?
the fact that like we said, it wasn't as somber today as you think it might have been. I think that might go to show that a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah, actually, that's also something I tweeted also about hearing when Bellantoni was fired and seeing on Twitter a couple of the players on the defense being like, "Oh, why'd you let go of the best coach?" And I was thinking in my head, imagine the next day in that locker room, in that team meeting, and seems like most of the team, not just on the defense, probably also on the offense as well, all being like, "I cannot believe the head coach just let go of the best guy on our team, best coach on our roster." And with the other guy who we think is the problem, which could have been the offensive coordinator, but got rid of the best coach. So I feel like, wow, imagine the disconnect with that team now from your head coach, where it's I won't say much a trust, because I want to jump to, I don't want to make huge judgments, but thinking man, the head coach, we thought was going to make the right decision. He let go of the guy we all liked as a coach, because hearing from what Jackson Ambush was mentioning, he said that whenever you see Bellantoni in the halls, always has a smile on his face, always bright energy, positive energy. So just imagine as players on the defense and also players overall on the team being that guy, that bright character we always saw in the halls is now let go of the team. Then do we have any much more investment in the program? Sure, not going to be not making it into the postseason. So there's that, but also just thinking trying to finish the season strong.
Yeah.
Do you have much optimism now as a team, knowing that you're the best coach, that you all believe is the best coach, is gone, and you're being should we follow through with this head coach because he just got rid of the guy we all believe in? That was my initial thought hearing when Bellantoni got fired, because I was these guys are all unanimously saying this was the best coach, and just thinking there's now going to be a huge disconnect in that locker room. And again, I really didn't see the FAU Temple game on ESPN Plus. I really didn't see how the team meshed well, but I'm thinking again, score 18-15 overtime, not that great. Even after Temple won, they let go of their head coach too. So I'm just thinking just imagine how that game was the week after. I mean, that team I thought was kind of already disconnected.
Yeah.
That, I feel like they were kind of disconnected a little bit at the beginning prior to that game, but I feel right before that game was the final straw when Bellantoni got fired.
So would you guys say that do you guys think that the Bellantoni firing might have played a part of Coach Herman being fired?
I don't think
that
so.
disconnect with the
I don't think
players?
2-8, 2-8.
Yeah.
But also, I think I heard the head coach, people who were watching the game were mentioning how the interim defensive coordinator, I think Brandon Harris they were the defense was pretty good under Harris. I mean, the team was still able to salvage
and
it.
that was a huge topic of conversation today. The fact, one, that they said there wasn't very much turnover at all, and by turnover I mean change into how they're operating from a logistical point and scheme. And like we said, that was one of their better defensive performances all year.
Yeah.
15 is the least they've given up in over a month. I know that because prior to that, it was something 40-something a game almost.
Yeah, because it was 49 against ECU, 44 against US7, and North Carolina was 41.
It was basically after that North Texas game. I feel all the stretch was all 40 plus. But now going forward, there's all of this internal kind of commotion going on, but they still have a game this Saturday against Charlotte, and Cam Fancher's injured, Kason Wiseman's injured, so Tyreek Starks will be starting as quarterback. What do you guys think we can even expect?
This is gonna be one of the fun, wackiest, dumbest games ever. Two teams that neither have a real head coach.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what Charlotte's quarterback situation is. It's probably not very good. And FAU's got their third string.
Purdy's averaging 5 interceptions a game.
Oh my God.
Can we please
That's
fact check that?
No, that's not averaging. That's
Okay, I was like, please
season.
let's
I'm
fact check
sorry.
that.
I was
No.
gonna be like, wow.
Please.
I was gonna be Kyler McCoy
No,
over there.
He has 6 touchdowns and 5 interceptions on the season.
Man, that's a
But-
bad TD interception.
Yeah, no,
It's
just
also senior night.
Exactly.
And it's their last home game
Yeah.
of the season, so.
it's two teams that have like kind of nothing to play for, but I like also like you said, it's senior night, so sort of something to play for.
I also feel
I don't
like
really. Who can? No one probably could like properly predict this game.
Yeah.
But I feel like also there could be at least like a little bit something to play for if you're like for FAU because and maybe same
Well,
goes,
yeah,
maybe same
you're
goes
right.
for Charlotte because you have 2 interim head coaches. Maybe they want to try to prove, hey, I could be the head coach, the front runner for your head coaching decisions while FAU's
Yeah.
trying to scout.
Well, yeah,
other
like I
coaches.
said,
So-
there's stuff that there's definitely there's not like nothing to play for. They're not like gonna go out there and not try. Like I said, 4-8 looks a lot better than 2-10.
Yeah. Oh, also we
Um,
forgot to mention how when Bellantoni originally was fired, 2 linebackers and 1 offensive lineman immediately decommitted. So now I think it was either you or someone. I think it was either you, Cameron, or someone on Twitter. I think maybe from 24/7 Sports was mentioning like, I wonder if anyone's going to like recommit now from those 3 players. Everyone's going to recommit now. Bellantoni.
I don't think I'm not sure it was anyone over at 247,
Could
but
be an
I
outside.
understand what you're saying because you are right. There was. I'm not sure like what like their decommitment process was like, but after like in the week after they were committed, and then in the week after they weren't.
Yeah.
But again, like all that's to say, there is when you have like recruits that you're trying to sell, and then once like the transfer portal heats up, you have to sell like players that want to win now. So again. 4-8 is a lot better than 2-10, so that's definitely what they're shooting for.
I can also
Especially
imagine.
with 2
I can
winnable
also
games.
imagine if it's a little bit easier trying to recruit someone, and be like, hey, there's going to be a new like system starting forth. So imagine like going to like a D1 program, like if you're going to like an Alabama or like a Oregon, where they already have their head coach, they have this system for a couple of years. You're trying to get used to that system, and everyone else around you already kind of knows how that system plays out. Versus coming to this new program, you could earn a starting position. You're learning a new
That's
system
why.
with everyone else. So.
That's why this is a really this is a cliche. Like anytime any coach gets hired, it just gets said like, oh, this is a big hire for this school. But it kind of is because like you've whiffed on your last 2, and this one on your last 2 head coaching hires, and this one you whiffed bad.
Yeah.
So, and you kind of have to like change up. I don't say you have to, but like the last 2 head coaches you've had have been like the same style, like the power conference retread, like they've been fired from a power conference and
Yep.
now you're trying to like revive them here. You've tried that twice and it hasn't worked. So you kind of have to like change up. I don't like how you go about it. I don't know if that's hiring someone who's like younger
Or within maybe the system.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. If
I don't.
let's say they
I
win the
know.
next 2 games.
Well,
you
that's
don't
just like an
think
odd.
that-
That's an outlier type of like situation when that you get like a in-house promotion, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's very, 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 very rare.
I mean, he
and I
did go
doubt
for
they go
2
that.
for 2 on it, so.
I mean,
Talking about-
hey, I mean, that's a rare situation when you have someone in your. I think a lot of times, or the best time for that is when you have someone who's younger. And if we want to get into this, I would prefer they'd go the route of like a coordinator who who's been in a winning culture. Because my thought process is, in the position FAU's in, like recruiting is going to kind of figure itself out. Because with NIL and soon to be revenue sharing, however that's going to work, you're in South Florida. I feel like just recruiting will figure itself out eventually if you win.
Yeah.
So go after someone who has a track record of winning, who's been under a coach who's a proven winner. That's what you should be prioritizing.
I think,
So, like,
I think
But-
also like just knowing the 5-6-1s out like the regional area. I think also just learning that as well. Learning the tri-pound
people
area
put
as
a
well.
people put a premium on that, but I feel like like a coach can familiarize himself with the area. I get having like a previous South Florida footprint helps, especially when you, like we were talking about, you want to hit the ground running when you get there. So like having a like connections down here, so you have like your foot in the door when you start helps. But I don't think any of that is more important than having a track record of success.
Yeah.
Which you can find elsewhere. And what were you about to say?
No, I think it's funny that you brought up the get a coordinator from like a winning culture.
And that's, again, I
Yeah.
don't want to cut you off. That's another like cliche, but
Yeah.
it's worked out.
Yeah.
So why not try it?
Yeah,
Correct?
yeah, exactly. And it's funny that you say that because we just did that with basketball with John Jackas. We just got
That's
him.
what-
Yeah, he came from Baylor and Gonzaga. He was a assistant coach in Baylor and Gonzaga. So doing that for here, like for the football team, maybe just do the same thing.
It would make sense, and I'm glad that you brought up Jacobs because I actually was going to say the same exact thing so that we could kind of we could keep debating about all of this stuff that's
But
going
nice
on
transition
in the
Nice
to
little
football,
segue.
football
Yeah.
world, but now we will be segueing into basketball. So they are officially 3-2 now on the season. You know, I went and covered the UCF game in person, and I mean that was amazing just to experience.
Have we been on a show? Wait, when was
We
the
have
last?
not. I
since
don't know
the
if we
beginning
have.
of the season?
Have we talked about basketball at all?
I think I don't know if we've been on since Indiana, like the season opener.
Indiana
So
State. So we
let's just
can-
run through it. They open up the season running past Indiana State,
Mm-hmm.
97-64. Run past Coastal Georgia.
Yeah, I was there for that game. That was,
Bye
that was
game
fun.
by 50 points. Fall to UCF 100-94 in a really great game. Fall to Charleston 119-116 in
That's
double
game- that's-
overtime
that's game
in
of the
one of
year.
the greatest
Yeah.
games I've ever watched.
And they put it on YouTube. So much hate.
A day later, they beat Liberty in overtime 77-74, which has them at 3-2, 5 games in the
So
season.
aside from the Liberty game, you know they have really been living up to that expectation that Jacobs has set of being a high-scoring team. I
Yeah.
mean, we can get into it, but I guess let's start with. So the Indiana State game we touched on a bit. Coastal Georgia, I feel like there's nothing really to kind of get
Bye
out
game,
of
they
that
did what you're supposed
Yeah.
to do in a
because
bye
that
game, yeah.
exactly they did exactly what they were supposed to do.
I mean, they started sloppy in the beginning, the first like couple
Well,
of
they
minutes.
beat
It
them
was,
by
like,
50.
it was a very
They
close,
beat
but
them
they
by
had to
50.
find their
But
stride.
They beat 'em
they
by
pulled
50.
together.
Yeah.
And, you know,
They should put 100
you
on that.
can't complain.
They beat them
about
by
Yeah.
50.
it.
Oh, I wish they were a little bit better in the beginning.
Oh man, like they didn't get one more point.
That
But
was
it's okay.
hilarious.
There was a lot of turnovers in that beginning of the game.
Now, did any of
picky.
you watch the UCF game?
I did.
Yeah.
That was
Okay,
a really,
I did.
really,
that
really good
game-
game.
Wait, how'd you like was it addition financial rate? How'd you like
Yeah,
Bro.
well that's my hometown college because I'm from Orlando. I live like 10 minutes from UCF. So I've been in there before watching like basketball and volleyball. But it was really cool. I got so lost trying to find the media like section because I had to DM this person that reported for UCF and ask like how to figure it out. Because FAU's is really simple. It's
They're
just
small.
Yeah.
it's a little media table. You instantly see it.
Wait,
But
didn't
for-
contact the communications person for basketball?
Well, it was when I walked in, I was asking the media people at the gate, where do I go? And they didn't really give me answers.
Oh.
And then,
At
so
FAU,
I
we will
just-
make sure. At FAU, we will make
I
sure.
used
But
my
for UCF.
resources. But it was really amazing because the way that they have media, it's like they have the bottom bowl and then it's all around the whole ring of the bottom bowl.
Yeah.
So, and then the
Step your
student
game up, FAU.
Yeah, the student section had palm fronds, which was
I-
shocking that they were allowed to bring those in there. And someone
they
else-
have that on the court as well, and
Yeah.
like, why is that like their shtick?
I feel like that should be our thing.
So they're kind of biting the style, like just a
Like,
little bit, if you're asking me.
Just
but
say that you want to be us.
I'm,
But
she said it.
They someone also threw a hamburger on the court.
Oh yeah, immediately the fans were like, FAU
Why
guy,
is
FAU
that
guy.
like a trend as of recently, like throwing stuff onto like the playing field?
Didn't it start
dangerous
happening?
for all
It's
sports
happened
as well
like
for
4 or
college
5, like 3
football
or
as
4
well.
times this year in the
Yeah.
college football.
I thought it started with the Texas,
Texas
game.
game,
Yeah, because they didn't
yeah.
agree with the
Yeah,
call.
and then what was it, like Colorado or wherever they threw tortillas?
I've seen it a couple times.
I don't
now.
know.
What?
But
That was fun. That was
look,
fun.
if
Bad
you're
trend.
a college fan, don't do that stuff because
Tell 'em.
that is dangerous for the players. You don't want to hurt them. What if you throw it and you're on the opposing team, but then you hurt one of your team's players? Like, just cut it out.
Also-
You know, you can
Yeah.
like
Cut it out.
Advice from Megan
Do-
Brunsma as
yeah.
a fan: don't do that.
just boo from the crowd, but you don't
Yeah.
have to actually throw things. And it was funny because in the broadcast they were saying that it was an FAU fan, but at the game they said that if it happened again, it would be a technical foul on UCF.
On UCF.
Oh,
So,
not my student body. Yeah.
I don't really know. No one knows exactly who did it.
That's a great mystery. Wait, hasn't
but-
UCF like soon newspaper like figured out that mystery? That'd be a good article.
But anyway, aside from all like the little drama and just the commotion of the student section, that game was
Fantastic.
fantastic.
Yeah.
It
A lot of
was-
offense. A lot
yes,
of offense.
a lot of offense. I mean, UCF put up 100 points.
I would say
Yeah.
it was a lot of offense, but it
And-
was kind of bad foreshadowing for
the
the game
next
that
game.
was to come because I think watching that game, a lot of us, our big kind of takeaway is like, oh, we're kind of seeing some holes in the defense a little bit that we didn't get to see against two really bad opponents in their first two opening games. And then against Charleston, like those holes were like glaring.
Yeah. I mean, I
Really, really bad defensive performance.
Yeah, when I was watching the very end, that game winner, I forgot who
Well,
from Charles-
before we
Charleston-
get to that,
Okay,
before we get to that,
Yeah.
before we get
In
to
the
that,
UCF game, they allowed 3 guards to score 20 plus points.
exactly. And
So,
or go ahead.
That
sorry.
was concerning, but I was also like, okay, UCF did just beat Texas A&M, and they were the 13th ranked team in the country. So by doing that, it was kind of like going into the UCF game, like they're gonna have to prove themselves. And like you said, the holes opened up where they saw, look, guard
Right.
defense was not there, and
That's
then that
my biggest
trend
point, because
continued in the next game.
100 points looks bad, and 119 again looks bad. But like when I watch FAU, they constantly look confused on defense.
Yeah.
Always. They always look like they're over accounting for something, because what I'm seeing is that there's always trying to double, and that's leaves someone open, obviously. And if teams are able to swing the ball around, consistently well, which, UCF and Charleston found a way, they constantly have FAU chasing. And that's what it looks like. Every position, it's like someone chasing the ball, someone chasing the ball, someone chasing the ball, someone chasing the ball. And eventually that's going to open to, an open shot, an open look for someone eventually. And that's what happened twice. Again, that got cleaned up a little bit versus Liberty. But the fact that, twice in a row, when you're playing two really good teams, because I don't know what your guys' opinion on them, but I think UCF's going to be a really, really good team.
Yeah.
And Charleston might be another, which might be the third year in a row. I know they were in the tournament once in the past
But
year.
Yeah.
both those games,
Um,
regardless of like the outcome, just that point differential. I mean, against UCF, sure, giving up 100 points, but also, I mean, within 6 points on the road against a Power 4 school, that's pretty big. And then going against in double overtime, going against a school that also been a March Madness recently in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So keeping up, same within them, but no,
That,
within
I would
like
say that
6
might
straight
not.
points.
Charleston might not be as bad of a loss because, they have a sneaky good chance to be a tournament team because they could win that conference. But even though those like we might say like, oh, those might not be as terrible losses in March as they look now.
But-
Both of those games showed stuff you have to clean up, offensive or defensive end particularly, but as well on the offensive
Yeah,
end.
and
What
actually-
were, if you guys had any other?
Actually, I want to do is actually kind of bring up what I pointed out also on social media was when I was watching the game-winning shot. I forgot who it was on College of Charleston, but they made the like deep three from the front
And
court.
that was like his
from-
35th point.
Yeah,
or
from the
something
front
like
court right, deep three, and you have like 6'2", and not a shade on this guy, but it's like 6'2" Kiki Tandy guarding that play. Meanwhile, you have 6'11" Baba in the post. You have 6'11" Montes Kuchanas in the right side of in mid range, and you got Trey Carroll also still running down the court. All of them have huge height. You put like a 6 foot,
height
you put like
doesn't
6'2"
necessarily
guy
make you a
on.
good defender, though.
No, not necessarily.
But I also
And
feel
especially
like-
on the perimeter, because like I feel like if you'd ask anyone in that locker room like who's their best perimeter defender, it might be like Ken Evans maybe, because like I've just heard praise about how great of a defender he was. It's why he was the SWAC Player of the Year. I feel like you can point to that one shot, and maybe that was like a breakdown how Kiki Tandy ended up on him on that. But what about the other 30 2 points that
Yeah,
guy went for that
they
night.
also had
That was a
a lot-
top to bottom defensive breakdown all night.
Yeah, they
if you
had
wanna
a
take
lot of other opportunities before that. You know, if anyone's not familiar, when FAU played Charleston on what day was it? It was
Friday.
Friday.
Yeah.
They lost double overtime to a buzzer beater, which I hate watching this clip because it was just.
I wish we could have Mitchell roll it,
was-
but maybe it's better that they don't.
No,
We
he
just
Oh, we
rolled
do.
it, yes.
Perfect.
So you guys can all watch that.
You can
clip.
relive the pain.
But even though it was saddening, it was definitely the ending that game deserved.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
As just a basketball, like,
I'm just so mad
Fan,
though
but-
with how they put that Field of 68 Classic on YouTube, because that game
Rough
was the year you put it on
broadcast.
YouTube.
Rough
Yeah.
broadcast.
My God.
But,
Also bad broadcast as
FAU
well.
also had a battle, like the home court advantage that Charleston had. It was
Yeah.
loud in there.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
They
one
have a
thing,
nice arena, too,
like,
yeah.
when I covered the season opener at home, I forgot how loud the LE gets. Like, I had a headache after leaving that game.
It's for
so
Coastal Georgia too. Wait till someone.
Yeah, that
cool
was
comes to
Coastal
town.
Georgia.
Wait until Memphis on January 6th. season
Well,
open.
they messed up by making that during winter break because that's
Yeah.
on January 2nd.
Yeah, I have no idea why they did
Could
that.
be a lot louder in there than it probably will be. But
Start-
Two-
have
another
that be the start of the
discussion for a different day.
To your point, though, about Charleston's home court advantage, you watched the Liberty FAU game the next day. No one's in the crowd.
Yeah.
Completely
yeah,
different atmosphere.
Yeah, it's like 4 or 5 people in the
Which also makes
lower
sense to me.
bowl.
I think also like for the game between like College of Charleston and Liberty at FAU the year prior, I mean, wasn't really much people in the crowd. Probably not. Maybe some like fans, family of the players, but
I can't remember the game because that was last year, not year before last, right?
no, it was last year. Yeah, actually, for the fans who don't, for
Whenever
Charleston
the same
and Liberty.
event was
yeah,
here at FAU.
Yeah, just for fans to understand. So FAU, College of Charleston, and Liberty all made this like kind of contract for the teams with a field of 68. So for the 3 years FAU hosted last year for those 3 teams, Charleston is hosting this year in
So-
College of Charleston. Then in the year after, the final year, in I think Liberty's in
Next
Lynchburg,
year,
Virginia.
I would
Yeah,
say next
Liberty
year
will be
will be
hosting that match with all 3 of those same teams. So each one's hosting those 3 teams as a little like matchup in field of
but,
68.
you know, now that we're 5 games into the season, who is standing out to all of you? I know personally, I feel like Caleb Glenn has stood out.
Yeah.
Huge
He-
game. Huge
yes,
game. 27
against-
points.
He had 27.
I know it was 27 points. I can't remember the rest of the stat line.
Okay,
but
he had 27 points. He was 10 for 14 from the field goals and 4-4 from the free throw line. He just, every time that they throw the ball up to him, I
He's
just know
fun
that
to
he's
watch.
going to go
Yeah.
insane.
he's fun to watch because he's a really good defender, I think, and he is like his like signature play is like dunking, and he had like 3 like criminal charge type dunks against Charleston. Even
Yeah.
though it was a loss, he stood out crazy in that game. Really good defender, really good in transition. And that one dunk he
Yeah.
had, like, shut the arena down. Like, that was a crazy, crazy awesome play. He has really stood out.
He's also the most consistent player scoring-wise. He averages right now 16 points per game, and he's the leading scorer average-wise. And everyone else is like teetering around 12, 11, 10, 9.
Yeah, I was gonna say for me, there are also 2 players that come to mind. Because specifically with this team is there are a lot of players on this team that are playmakers offensively who can shoot. Again, we all understand, we all think unanimously that the big problem is the defense, and they have to try to fix that before AAC. Because as I mentioned multiple times on our show, the AAC is by far one of the most tough basketball conferences. I think out of them all, like not just mid-major, but one of the toughest. Because look at how the playoffs were. Like no one predicted Temple to be in the finals, and they were. So like, that conference is unpredictable, and it's going to get even more unpredictable when the regular season for conference starts after winter break. But for the 2 players I think stand out to me, obviously, is Matas Vodakaitis, who just won the AAC, I think Freshman Player of the Week or something.
And he,
But I was going to say also, I think fans are calling him out like the maestro Nicolo Moretti. I mean, that guy's been balling. First game, 19 points off the bench. Then against College of Charleston's 17 points. Against Liberty, 12 points. but like I think averaging right around like what you said, Morgan, about 12.8 points per game. So
Yeah.
him from off the bench doing that.
I'll interject because that's who I wanted to say as well. That's someone who I was kind of looking out for at the beginning of the season. Because a transfer from a really, really good basketball program like Illinois is gonna like interest you. But he's played a lot of basketball via playing at Illinois and at NBA Global Academy and playing for the Italian national team and DME Academy, all these different places. And I was like expecting him to have like a kind of at point guard like a cool, calming demeanor, and that's on top of being a really great scorer. He does have that. Looks really calm with the ball in his hands. On top of being really fast with the ball in his hands, he's good at creating looks for other guys. He's really good in transition. That was kind of what I was like, the presence I was kind of expecting from someone who's played a lot of basketball.
Well,
that's what I've seen.
I remember the article you wrote about.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was saying about an article you wrote pointing out when you and JD both went to the Paradise Madness. You were mentioning how like Nicola Moretti was like commanding the team throughout the entire like Paradise
like
Madness.
at point guard, you want him to have that like kind of like leadership kind of.
Yeah, but I was also gonna like actually promote. Also, there's an great article Cam wrote recently about some of the transfer guys also. That Coach Jacobs and Todd Abernathy also kind of like got, but mainly like Coach Jacobs goes around like Spain, Italy.
Yeah.
So.
Very. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. But yeah, he was someone who I was like kind of had my eye on going into the season, and he's really impressed me through one. But same thing, like all the same guys you were saying. Like Maddox is someone who, especially in that those couple opening games, and I think he's someone who will get better.
He's a freshman.
Freshman.
He has to get used to the American style play.
Yeah, and just being
in
here.
that UCF game, he got a technical foul for like screaming in someone's face, and Jacobs was like, "Look, that he's learning."
I like that. With some passion.
Yeah, I kinda
There's some
liked
European
it,
basketball
but,
into this.
all of the guards really have stood out. Obviously, Moretti, like you said, he brings. I feel like he's not starting because he's coming off the bench, but when he does come in, he kind of calms down the team almost and like.
Oh yeah, I think it was it was the UCF game when him and I forget who they inserted off the bench first. It was like a pretty nice run, like pretty soon after that FAU had. So just to bounce off what you're saying.
No, but
It's really tough to pick like one player, honestly, because it really feels like, I mean, like I already mentioned this before, like all the players are like averaging around the same like points per game. So it really feels like any one of these guys can go off. Like Leland Walker went off for 20 points a couple of games ago, and then of course you have like Ken Evans, like any Moretti in the first game. Any one of these guys can really go off. So
Plus
it's like
also with this team, I mean, they're like we're just point out to actually one fan on social media was mentioning like they're like a couple points away from the UCF and the College Charleston. A couple points away, a couple plays away from actually winning those two games being back. No, they were a couple plays away. And with this team, I don't want to kind of jump too far being like, oh, they're better than like the Dusty years. But, I mean, the bench is similar to with FAU, very deep bench where the fans are used to. So have a deep bench. Everyone's playing well offensively. Everyone's trying to mesh well with one another. Again, the problem is with that defense. I feel like once that defense, once they click on well on defense, figure out their identity on defense, because they have a good idea what they're going to do offensively, but on defense, once they figure out who they are, I feel like they're going to be a very dangerous team. They could be ranked possibly at the end of the season.
That's what I think their problem is, and they need to figure that out, is who is kind of going to take a slight pause on the offensive standpoint, and who is going to start focusing on defense.
We got 12 days in Charleston, so we'll figure it out probably in 12 days in Charleston.
Yeah, they're getting comfortable in Charleston.
Yeah, they just pickleballed with Todd Abernathy and Coach Jacobs pickleballed with Jeff Goodman. I asked Abernathy what the score was. I think it was Abernathy and Goodman.
Box score.
I asked Abernathy what the score was.
Pickleball?
Oh yeah, I have a pickleball house right next to, or a pickleball court right next to my house.
Yeah,
pickleball is actually fun.
It's actually fun.
What is it? Is it like tennis or something?
It's
like tennis light.
Wait, do you need to bounce off a wall or something? That's not pickleball, right?
It's like tennis with like a wiffle ball and smaller rackets.
It's like tennis with a smaller court. But
there's too many tennis.
If you're listening and ever want to play,
we would all play with you. If you guys, ever want to run up like a pickleball tournament,
See,
Like,
I gotta watch some YouTube videos, figure out basic rules, but yeah,
Yeah.
12 days in between their game, resting, playing pickleball,
Yeah,
find
all
some good
that
places
is
to eat, yeah.
important though, because I remember, if y'all remember correctly, whenever we were talking like out of or non-conference schedule, their next game is one we were pointing to a lot. That and Michigan State a little bit later, but
Oklahoma State's gonna be a test. I mean, they're
it's
Yeah.
going to be a
12 as
test,
well.
and again, like it's a little early for this, but a win over a power conference team stands for something later
Yeah.
on in the season. Whenever you're like splitting hairs, trying to like build resumes and stuff like
yeah,
that.
especially if we don't win. Especially if we don't win the AAC tournament.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and with the fact that you've already dropped now to
3-2.
or two of your non-conference games.
Yeah, and those would be big games too.
Yeah,
Especially
so
'cause-
now that makes every
yeah.
game from here on out of much more important.
that's
Yeah.
what at the beginning of the season, when they first released the non-conference schedule, we talked about the Oklahoma State game. And now after seeing, these first 5 games, if they beat Oklahoma State, then they're playing in the Charleston Classic, so they'll either play Miami or Drake, and then
Let's hope for Miami. That'd be a good game.
Yeah.
yeah.
Finally do.
and
Because
then
we almost had that for the
if
Final
they
Four.
Oh, yeah.
win that game, then they'll head to the championship game on November 24th.
Mm-hmm.
What
Oh, by the way, all
How
these
do you-
games will be on ESPN2, and the championship will be on ESPN as well. So that's
if
pretty
you
cool.
guys
Thank you.
can make some predictions for the tournament and how you think it's going to play out, how do you think?
I feel
they'll
like
go?
FAU's in that point where they're still trying to find out who they are, and they haven't played a lot of games together with this new coach, new everything basically. All right. I mean, you wrote an article. It's only one coach and 4 players,
Yeah.
and 3 of those players don't really. Well, 2 of them do. Vanterpool and Trey Carroll does get some burn, but the other 2 they don't really get a lot of minutes.
I think they're both injured.
Yeah.
I know Jaquel's injured. I think Jack is still riding the bench.
yeah, he
He's
got a
been
couple
insert-
minutes.
He's got a couple
Yeah.
spot minutes. here and there, yeah.
Some fans were excited when he came onto the field.
Yeah,
court.
I mean,
Yeah,
was
they
it
are.
one of the
Coastal
only-
Georgia?
Him and Trey are like
Everyone loves Trey.
the only ones who have been here
Through
the Final Four, unless I'm mistaken. So
I
Wait,
yeah.
wait, no,
Yeah,
Devin.
no,
Yeah,
you're
Devin
right.
was a freshman. Yeah.
Devin and
Yeah.
Jaquel Powell are both
Both freshmen.
redshirt freshmen this year,
Yeah.
so they
Yeah.
would have started last year. So yeah, no. But he makes a good point. It's very early, very,
Yeah.
very, very, very early for anything like tournament predictions. But one thing we have to be in this FAU in this portion of the season has to be, I don't want to say cheering for their conference, but you want your conference to be playing really well, so they build a nice out-of-conference resume. So when you're playing these teams twice in your conference schedule, those wins look even better.
I
Yeah.
feel also
Wait,
like
I
North
think
Texas
you
right
got-
now is
I
looking
just
good.
meant for this tournament. Not like
Oh,
North-
for the Charleston
yeah,
Classic?
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
Oh,
I'm
excuse
not
me.
talking March
Excuse
Madness. I'm
me,
just,
excuse me,
I'm like,
excuse me.
well, it's
Yeah,
not
I was
that.
surprised. I was surprised what Cameron was doing. He's like, man, I don't want to think ahead. I'm like, the game
No,
starts
oh.
on
The
this
game is literally
Thursday.
this Thursday. I don't
Oh,
think we're thinking
so
too
sorry
far
about
ahead.
that. I'm
2:30
so
p.m.
sorry
by the
about
way.
that. But
Yeah, 2:30
Oklahoma
p.m.
State, I mean, well, one is that you have to figure something out on defense.
Yeah.
You kind of did a little bit against Liberty, but again, like you don't want to get into another game where you're just like in like a shootout into overtime.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody is really going to have an incredible winning percentage in games like that. Keep doing the same things you've been doing on offense because, before Liberty, I don't know really where that would stand, but that's like one of the better before Liberty, one of the better point averages when you're, 97, 99, 94, 116. So continue doing the same things you've been doing on offense, but you've got to sharpen up on defense, whether that be, something with the scheme or, trying to improve your communication. Whatever. I'm not a coach. Whatever they were doing, it was getting away from them for a while. So that has to sharpen up.
To give a prediction, I'm thinking 1 win, whether that be against Oklahoma State and then we lose in the semifinal, or we beat the loser of the Miami Drake game. I'm going to predict at least 1 win.
I kind of predict maybe the same as Morgan. I mean, it's early early in the season as well. However, I feel like for teams including like Oklahoma State and whoever wins that Miami and Drake game, when they're going to be scouting FAU, they're going to be like, okay, this team can average about 90 points per game. So we know it's going to be a high-scoring offense, defense, and looking so well. So let's find some holes in the defense So I feel like for FAU, again, with these like 12 days in Charleston, they have to try to figure out what their identity is, again, quickly before conference play starts, but also early enough to try to figure out what they want to do defensively in their identity and how well they are perimeter on defense, so they could win either against Oklahoma State or the winner of Miami and Drake, or get close enough between those two programs to look good for later on in the season. However, also, it's better to have wins than looking pretty good in the loss. So the objective is not like, okay, we lost by 2 points to Oklahoma State, but that's good. No, you want to try to win against Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Especially,
that's a
Well,
tough.
It'd be
and
different-
it's definitely. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, okay. I was gonna say it'd be different if we like beat UCF or beat Charleston and then lost to Oklahoma State. That'd be different, but it
By the way,
kind
let's
of.
also point out the fact that this game starts Thursday at
2:30
2:30
yeah.
p.m. 2:30 on a weekday.
And an hour before our class.
Yeah, and it was actually that's like
in
half an hour.
class.
That's a half hour after my French, about half an hour after my French class. So I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna watch that game.
But yeah, I was just gonna say, like, this Oklahoma State game, it's definitely doable. Seeing how they competed with UCF, it's just they have to just focus a little bit on defense, because Oklahoma State, the last 3 games, they've all won them, but their highest scoring game was 89 points. So FAU has proven that they can outscore 89 points themselves, but it's just from the defensive end, and you know, it's early, and I think it's good that they're having these tough games early on, because it's helping them get prepared for AAC play. I'm about to cough, but so let's go ahead into our live read. We have, you know, not too much longer with the show, but if you're a club or student organization wanting to promote an event you're hosting, or you just want to promote yourself, DM at UPress Sports on Instagram with 3 to 4 sentence paragraph, and we'll read it live on air. So as we're kind of wrapping up the show for today, figured since it's been a while, we can all, you know, kind of do a little update on what has been going on with our NFL teams. So would anyone like to kick off?
Why y'all all look at me? Oh my.
Your Bears supposed to be really good this year, man. So you got high praise for Caleb as well.
It's
before we go on
just
our break.
another week in the endless cycle of misery that is being a Bears fan. You know, just to give anyone who didn't watch a recap, Bears lose to the Packers, obviously, because that's what always happens. This time the score was 19-20, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah.
Bears lose on a blocked field goal as regulation expires.
But you guys gave up like 30 seconds of play before that field goal.
Well,
Yes, another just complete coaching blunder. Again, just like the Commanders game, which I don't know if we've been here since then. I can't remember. The Bears losses just bleed together at this point.
Yeah.
well, how do you feel about the Patriots loss?
Well, again, another loss. That's just a coaching blunder, because the fact that you let what felt like, well, and we kind of know now, you kind of like your season got away from you after that Commanders loss. Between the jabs between players and coaches, in press conferences, Tyree Stevenson getting benched and then deciding to leave practice and come back, and then just going and completely laying an egg against 2 terrible opponents. No offense, Maddox. When at the beginning of the season, whenever we looked at the Patriots and the Cardinals games, those are 2 gimme wins to get ready before a gauntlet of divisional games, and they just looked terrible. They looked like in the Cardinals game, the fact that they were just getting outplayed by the Cardinals is one thing, and then against the Patriots, it just didn't care. Like, they just quit, and you know, at that point, it's like, oh, the season's over essentially. But they got me. Again, they got me. They looked good against the Packers. They really did. Caleb looked good. The defense was kind of holding Jordan Love in check. They forced a turnover at one point.
DeAndre did good for me for fantasy.
Really nice play by DeAndre Swift to take the lead, unless I'm falsely remembering. And then what I thought, was a game-winning drive. That was a roller coaster of emotions within of itself, because 2 sacks to start the drive off, only to get that crazy 4th down play. Beautiful throw and catch. They got me, only to miss the field goal.
Yeah.
They got me again. I mean, I should have expected it. Like, that the Bears always lose to the Packers. That's what being a Bears fan is. But
I think actually I can go for
Again,
they're down.
I think I can
Right?
go and talk about the Patriots because Cameron's and my teams both are not doing that great this season. Megan and Morgan's both are doing great. So we'll just start with the bad teams first and then go to the good teams.
We'll end off on a good note.
Yeah, so my Patriots, yes, I'm a Patriots fan in South Florida, very fun. I didn't actually see that game against the Rams because I was broadcasting a volleyball game that started at 1 p.m. on Sunday. By the way, shout out to the FAU women's volleyball team. Winning that game on senior day, great comeback in the fourth set, and going to the playoffs, a 6 seed.
yeah,
Going to the playoffs, playing against a 3 seed ECU. But back to the Patriots thing. I didn't see the last second interception that you talked about on the show sheet, Megan, but again, as I mentioned prior, I mean, this is a rebuild year. Really wasn't expecting much to happen. And, I mean, Drake May's been looking good, putting up some good numbers. I mean, better numbers, I think, with how Caleb Williams did the first season.
Caleb
first start for the
Williams
season.
also had Shane Waldron as his coordinator for a while.
But so far the Patriots, Drake May looking pretty good there. But, I mean, future of your franchise, and you're just in the rebuild mode. I mean, right now it's just seeing what pick you get and who will be best available for you. What's the next step to do, what to do in free agency. I mean, of course, the Patriots are not going to do is tank. They're not going to tank this season. I mean, let the Jaguars do that. Or the Jets. I mean, they're not doing that well either. But, I mean, Patriots are not going to tank this year. However, I mean, they're just going to go roll the punches, try to get maybe 1-2 more wins, try to have some optimism, and then see what they're going to do in free agency because they lost a couple players in free agency, including Matthew Judon, which I was so mad about because he was really good at the defensive line. But just see what they do in free agency, what they do in the draft, and hopefully next year will be a little bit better. Because again, with rebuild teams, not really expect to have their first season be that great, or even like their second season. So I'm just gonna stay patient. Also, because I'm now kind of like about to graduate in a couple of years. I'm also trying to like go into the professional realm. I'm trying to like be a little bit more neutral, a little bit like that's why I'm wearing like an Auburn shirt and being a little like neutral in sports now. Trying to like.
That's still a sports shirt.
Yeah, I'm saying like as a neutral, like now like being a fan of one team, just like kind of like.
That is a nice shirt you got on.
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
feel like you always have a different assortment.
Yeah.
Like random kind of.
Just random teams. He's a fan of everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just wait until after Christmas. I have a whole bunch more shirts.
Is that what you're asking for Christmas?
Yeah.
Just shirts of colleges.
Well, I know you two don't really want to talk about your teams, but I love my team this season.
Blushing right now.
Well,
Like-
let's start with my team first because
Why?
You have the best.
you have the best
Oh,
team.
okay.
You have the best team on here.
No,
I'll
we should
wait.
start from records given for me.
Oh yeah, I guess.
Oh, true.
But talk about the Ravens versus the Steelers. That was a heartbreaking game. We're now 8 of 9 since 2020. In our last 9 matchups, we've lost 8 of them. And
To the Steelers.
to the Steelers.
Okay.
To the
Oh, wow.
Steelers.
That's it. They just have your number, like your
Yeah.
guys' number. It
Yeah,
seems
and
like.
the
Yeah.
Steelers are not really like.
I mean,
this
they're
year they're
not
good.
looking
They're
right
always
now.
they're
That's
always
why I
good
can't-
though.
I-
That's
They're
why I
always
feel-
good.
That's why I feel like 'cause I tweeted this as well, being like, here are like 4. I have put down 4 coaches I think should be Coach of the Year candidates. One would be Mike Tomlin because no one predicted this year's Steelers team to be good. They had 2 quarterbacks that were like having bad seasons prior, and then coming to this football team. You don't know who's going to start. Both of them have been kind of mediocre. Again, no offense to Cameron and his Bears, Justin Fields, but now look, both quarterbacks are not looking out well. Not really any big name guys on like the offensive side, like receivers or whatnot for the Steelers, and then they're 8-2 right now. So I mean,
That's been my point. Heartbreaking loss, but does that change your outlook at all? Losing
Well,
to like another playoff team like
It's
that?
how we lose. And the Ravens always lose, and I feel like the divisional games are a very good way to look at like how the Ravens will play in the playoffs because the atmosphere, the hatred, the like desperation, and it's the Ravens tend to play down to their competition. I mean, our only losses this year, not including the Chiefs because the Chiefs were undefeated until against the Bills.
Yeah.
But the Raiders, who are not playing well right now, and then the Browns, who, I mean, it was with Jameis Winston, and Jameis Winston went off on the Ravens. And the Ravens just tend to always, like, collapse. And it's weird because it's like, with John Harbaugh, and last season also, you should expect like us to be like, oh, we're fine. But like
And
we
you guys-
always collapse.
Yeah, and you guys just got Derrick Henry. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
I was seeing on the ESPN sports shows in the morning. They were talking about that game being like the final play, that failed 2-point conversion. Where was Derrick Henry?
Yeah.
Derrick Henry was not in the
It's
field.
the Ravens' problem has always been coaching decisions. Honestly,
Do you feel like Harbaugh should be let go if like they don't go
Whoa.
back to like the postseason? Wait.
No,
'cause
well, okay, I'll
they
say
have-
this.
They've
That
been a
was
good
crazy.
team in
To
the regular
be-
season
to
and the
be-
postseason. They always come short.
To be realistic, that's not going to happen. Eric DeCosta, who's the Ravens GM, and John Harbaugh literally live next to each other. The Ravens are one of those organizations that are very like family based. You know what I mean? I mean, Ozzie Newsome and Ozzie Newsome, who was the Ravens general manager for a while. Eric DeCosta was the guy like under him since the beginning, since the 90s.
Oh, wow.
So this is a very family based. I mean, we've only had besides Marky Broda, we've only had two coaches.
Yeah, I feel like also like
Belichick
really
and
an NFL
Harbaugh.
like pro team, like you're going to try to be family based because like most of
Yeah.
our friends are averaging about like averages around like 30 years old, so most of them are
But-
My biggest question, it feels almost like the AFC is kind of the same as last year. Like I feel like we didn't know, but it felt always throughout the season like Ravens and Chiefs are like on a crash course. Like one of them has to like beat the other. If they want a shot at the Super Bowl.
or the Bills.
Yeah, or the Bills.
I would say you can throw them into that, but my kind of question is like, do you feel any more confident like in the Ravens like to get over that like hump of Mahomes, who's always going to be there? Do you
No.
feel any more confident
No.
now than you did last year?
I don't, not at all. The thing with Lamar Jackson, first off, is Lamar Jackson's a great quarterback. Obviously, he's definitely top 3 for sure. But it's the coaching really when I see them how they play against those players. For some reason, we have this fun idea of not giving the ball or running back the ball in particular situations, which does not make any sense. You can go back to some of the losses a few years ago, where it's like, I mean, Gus Edwards isn't the best running back, but he's very efficient, and he's a good running back, and we're up, and we don't give the ball to Gus Edwards, and then we collapse and lose in like the last minute or so.
I think also that 2-point conversion as well, seeing replays of it, it's like, you know,
A
Nelson
lot
Aguilar,
of
I think, like, Mark
miscommunication.
Andrews, didn't know where to go, and then that play, Lamar was trying to find something, like in motion, trying to find a receiver, and the receiver, I think, was intended for Nelson Aguilar. I think he was like in the slot or whatever. He was running right behind Lamar because a defensive line pushed him out of the way because they didn't know what to do on that play.
Yeah.
They didn't have the play set.
Yeah, there were a bunch of defenders, by the way, that just like broke the play down. Also,
Yeah.
they were right in front of Lamar very quickly.
And
The
that
Steel-
goes, emphasizes the rivalry too,
Yeah.
and the hatred. Like they're
Yeah,
going,
the Steelers' defense always finds a way. Like Lamar Jackson, he only has a losing record against 3 teams: the Chiefs, the Raiders, and the Steelers,
yeah,
right?
which makes sense.
And he's had good games against the Raiders and the Chiefs, but the Steelers, he's not had one single good game. Like no positive good game. And it just really feels like, for some reason against the Steelers, I don't even know if this is Lamar's fault. It just might be the coaching's fault. It's like the Steelers know how to play against the Ravens, and you can't have mistakes when a team knows how to play you very well. And there's too much miscommunication, too much undisciplined football. The Ravens are the most penalized team in 2019, 2023, and this year so far they're the most penalized team. And we're just not going to win a Super Bowl if that continues happening.
Yeah, I think also for talking about like running back struggles, we have a word about the Ravens running backs coach, which is a former FAU head coach,
Yeah,
Willie
Willie
Taggart.
Taggart.
So
I'm
It's those family connections.
yeah.
I'm a little pessimistic about the Ravens in the playoffs, mostly because we're still losing the same way. Nothing's really changed from that. And I think ultimately, go back to that question to John Harbaugh, time's ticking.
Yeah.
And I think that the more desperate, I mean, like, if you go to Ravens Twitter, Ravens social media, none of the fans like Harbaugh anymore. Like, it's adamant. Of course, I'm more on the neutral side. I think Harbaugh's given so much to this organization, and he's great in a lot of ways, especially like as a player's coach. But there's too many bad timeout situations, coaching decisions, miscommunication, undisciplined football, and we're just never going to win. The Ravens are never going to win the Super Bowl because the Chiefs are disciplined. The Bills are usually disciplined, and the Bills only lose to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Right. I remember in 2020, the Ravens lost to the Bills in the divisional round. I mean, it seems like when we actually face an opponent that's not face an opponent that's experienced and disciplined, we're going to lose. The Ravens are going to lose.
Well, hopefully for you guys, they can kind of learn how to become one of those disciplined teams
Yeah.
that can compete and become a team like.
I'll gloat a little bit more.
Yeah,
I know you're talking about the Lions.
You can have try to have a little bit of pride. Speaking of
right.
pride, more.
I was.
Yeah.
I
Your
wasn't
team's
gonna,
really
I
good.
was not gonna say the Lions. I was gonna say become like a team like the Chiefs or something.
Right.
To have a little bit more optimism, this is the best offense Lamar Jackson's ever had.
Yeah, I mean, Derrick
And-
Henry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you want to talk about being the best.
Oh, Derrick Henry has been amazing.
Um,
Every single time he gets the ball, it's just I expect like touchdown.
Yeah.
You know, that's how
Yeah.
great he's been.
Well, I just, I have watched the Lions for 20 years, and I don't think I've ever thought that they would be 9-1 right now. So, shout out Jake Bates. That's 2 games now that he has pulled through last second. I remember watching that Texans game. I was in Orlando, and I was watching it with my dad, which it was so nice to finally be able to watch a game with him this season. But we were just sitting there, and they weren't doing great at the beginning. I believe they were down by
They were down, I think, like
they were
17-3
down.
or whatever,
Yeah, it was 7 to like 23, and they did not allow the Texans to score in the second half at all. And I remember when the second half started, Dan Campbell was saying, "Oh, we need to have something come through like an intercept," and then they cut to an interception immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't it
So-
like Brian Branch or whoever caught the interception? I think it was like Brian Branch.
It was Brian Branch. Brian
Yeah.
Branch has been really good
But,
this season.
that moment was like hilarious to watch because the timing was perfect, and that game I felt like I was going back into the typical mindset of, oh, they're down by a bunch of points, they're just gonna fall apart like they typically do. But by being down by that much against the Texans and not allowing them to score in the second half has made me feel more confident about them going forward, because they were able to beat their old mistakes, and they showed that they're a different team now finally, compared to what they've been in the past. And it's just Jared Goff, even that game he had 4 or 5 interceptions?
5 interceptions.
Yes, it was 5 interceptions, beating his season record, which he was pretty clean for most of the season besides like the first game. So hopefully he can clean that back up. I mean, against the Jags, my friend was a Jags fan, and she was just like, you guys are, but they're not that.
I mean, even
Right,
games like that
but-
should still leave you confidence because, like, in the NFL, good teams beat the heck out of bad teams, and
Yeah.
they more than beat the heck out of a bad team.
Yeah.
And then,
Well,
like, when you
that's-
look at their schedule, that's kind of like the theme all season. Like, they don't play with their food; they thrash their opponents,
No,
which
they-
is the
I
signal
mean-
of a
Kinda
good
like,
team.
kind of sound
Yeah,
like Dan
against-
Campbell over there, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's true, like, because it
Well,
was
against
kind
the
of
Cowboys, they were 47-9.
right. Well,
And-
they probably
Well,
have
the Cowboys aren't good, so.
fact
Now-
check me,
well-
someone, but they probably have the best margin of victory in the NFL by a good bit now.
With Jaguars 52-6. Wow.
They should.
Yeah,
Yeah.
52-6.
52-14
but
against the
that,
Titans.
the fact that they beat up on bad teams consistently, and like you kind of hit on a little bit, they've like found multiple ways to win because like that's about as ugly as you can possibly play and still win that game. That's a sign of a good team that you can, if you play that bad and still find a way to win. And it's not even like you've played that bad against a bad team and like, okay, let me lock in and like win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Houston's a good team. That's a playoff team
Yeah.
more than likely. So, how much they're winning and how they're winning should leave you a lot of confidence.
Oh, yeah, I have a lot of confidence going forward with this season just because, like you said, a lot of teams normally against a bad competition, they play down to their level. And the fact that they're not doing that is super reassuring. So, the Colts this weekend, hopefully not to like keep digging your grave, but hopefully.
Oh no, they're gonna beat the
hopefully
heck out of the
yeah,
Bears on Thanksgiving.
This Thanksgiving, I think, will be a good one.
Just enjoy the Thanksgiving dinner, Cam, and the
Yeah.
parade. Just enjoy those.
Yeah.
So,
We got some other sports on
I think
Thanksgiving.
I think that's the difference between the Ravens and the Lions is the Lions have great coaching and players around them.
They're
Yeah.
great chemistry.
Yeah,
between
like-
there's an amazing chemistry.
Yeah, the
between two,
coaching-
clearly.
When the players have a bad week, the coaching can lift them up, and when the coaching maybe has like some problems, the players can lift them up. And with the Ravens, it really feels like if the players aren't doing everything, it's we lost.
Yeah.
And also, if Lamar Jackson doesn't play well, they lose.
Yeah.
Because they don't have that they don't have that great defense anymore that they did last year. So.
But that's what. So we'll see. And that's what it makes me feel good that even though we had the injury with
Aiden Hutchinson.
thank you.
Yeah.
I just blank when I'm trying to talk on the show sometimes, but even though they had Aiden Hutchinson's injury, the fact that they're still coming through and their defense is still coming through.
You guys got
You guys rallied.
Zadarius Smith, you guys
feel
got.
worried.
Well, one thing that
Oh,
stands
yeah,
out to me
Zadarius
is how
Smith's
much
great.
better their secondary is this year than last year. Not even like just like the guys they drafted, but like players that were here last year just are like in the secondary, just playing so much better.
Yeah.
Like I don't see like people like to point at the Lions pass rush a little bit. I don't see like a weak spot on their team. When like a lot of other teams you can, I feel like. I don't know what would you guys say the Lions like struggle with?
Maybe that like high level elite quarterback play. Maybe.
I mean, how
Jared
many? He's
Goff
been
has
pretty
played
close
pretty
to
elite.
elite.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean,
like,
Five
people-
interceptions
That's why-
like 2 weeks
Okay,
ago.
but
That's
okay,
why I said
how many
maybe.
games this week? Y'all got me gassing up Jared Goff.
stop-
Oh my God!
well,
Yeah,
I'm not even
how
hating. I'm just saying
How many-
maybe.
he's
That's a
been, like,
maybe.
Perfect, like or
If
not
I had to
perfect,
pick-
close to perfect,
Well,
like
yeah,
multiple times
he
this
had-
season.
If I had to
has.
pick one thing that's bad about the Lions, maybe it's like, oh, okay, but they have Patrick Mahomes, they have Lamar Jackson, Jared Goff. You know what I'm saying?
But I gotta say,
Okay,
it's the
but
first time on
people
UPress
are
play,
saying that
it's
Sorry,
fitting.
sorry.
I gotta say, first time on UPress play, we're fitting in so perfectly. Happens every single show, most likely.
I mean,
usually between me and Cameron. But yeah.
Don't-
Jared Goff has been playing as close to elite as he's ever gonna get. I think. You know?
I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen it multiple. Jared Goff. This is not the first time Jared Goff has been like that. He's been great with the Rams with Sean McVay. He's been great, but I feel like he doesn't do those like game-changing things that Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe
Like he
Burrow
can't like go
does.
take the ball and run like 30
He
yards
needs-
like Josh Allen
yeah,
does. So,
he
like,
needs-
does like no look or
exactly.
sidearm like throws.
He needs. It's
Patrick
not even that because I feel like he doesn't like. He's a good quarterback. Trust me, he's a top 10 quarterback in the league. But I feel like there's a difference between those like elite, like I don't want to say all-time greats, but like all-time great play from those quarterbacks I just named, and Jared Goff, who's just a great, solid quarterback.
You mean this season though?
I'm just talking about in general.
No, but I'm
I
talking
mean,
this
I'm looking at
season,
EPA.
Jared
I would
Goff
say is as close to elite as
one
anybody.
of the top.
Because I'm looking at EPA per play right now, and there's only starting quarterback higher than Josh
I mean,
Allen.
at the same time
is
though,
Lamar
I don't
Jackson.
want to do.
And that's one metric though.
Yeah.
Lamar
That's one
Jackson's
metric.
really. I'm glad that I drafted him for my fantasy. Like he has been.
We'll talk about fantasy. My team's going about to win the entire thing.
But okay.
I got two teams. One of them. We can talk about fantasy.
Oh,
teams
I,
all
he
day.
had to bring up
I got two
fantasy.
teams
He
doing
beats
well.
me in fantasy this week.
Here.
He has to bring up fantasy. Like,
Oh, okay.
I'm the
But,
best.
That was a close game, by the way, Cameron. You and I
was.
going
Yeah.
against each other.
How
It was.
we'll stop kind of the hate that has been going on towards Cameron ever since we started talking about the NFL. And on that note, I think it's about time to wrap it up. So if everyone wants to introduce yourself, where can they find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram at MaddoxBlado4 and on Twitter at Maddox Greenberg.
You can find me on Instagram at Megan_Bruinsma and at Twitter Megan Bruinsma.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at MJ_Larkins.
you can find me on Twitter at CamPriester247.
Yep. And on that note, we are trying to do one final show with the four of us before
With
break.
JD, yeah.
With JD, yeah.
But we'll see what happens with that. We don't really know. School's kind of wrapping up. But on that note, peace.
Peace.